So this video was how to operate a walking greens mower, and so a couple of you guys got to drive the operate the walking greens mower, right? Did it kind of match what you learned?
Yeah.
So who else was driving? You were driving? So was it kind of what you learned? It was kind of similar to your experience? It's pretty easy to do, right? Just the teardrops, just like you naturally came to you. So the teardrop that they present, where they bring it to the left and then bring it back around, if you don't do it that way and you try to chase it, it didn't work well, did it? And if you try to pull it back, what happens when you try to hold it back when it's trying to go away from you?
A lot of resistance.
It's a lot of resistance. It just wears you out. And so if you do it like he shows, where you teardrop, swing it to the opposite direction you want to be traveling, and then walk into that arm, then you're not chasing it. When you chase it, you're running. Just like you said, the chance of slipping is really high, and you just get really tired. If you try to pull it back, it does not want you to pull it back. It just goes. It's designed to go forward, and it goes forward. So you got to get used to just kind of letting physics take place. And so when you actually figure out the teardrop, it doesn't take a lot of energy. You swing it out, swing it in, walk into the step, come back, and then gently lay it down. And so gently laying it down is very important. Our little make-believe golf course that we have down here is really rough, so it's hard to lay it down smooth and keep going smooth because it just bounces a lot. And so on a normal golf course green, it's really smooth, and so you'll just gently just lay it right down and keep mowing. If you drop it, so if you get in the habit of just dropping it, the weight of the cutting unit will actually sink into the grass, and you'll actually create low spots. So all around the outside where you come on and off, you'll create low spots. All greens mowers have notches. The handle is in a notch that allows the handle to be free. It physically has a movement in it. And as an operator, your job is to just gently cradle the handle and keep it between those notches. You don't want to rest your hands on it because that lifts the front up and it makes the grass tall, and you don't want to pick up on it because it forces the front roller down and it will make the grass too short. And especially if you keep putting pressure either way, your grass will be very uneven. So you want to get in the habit of just kind of cradling it and walking. Something he didn't talk about that we talked about with the couple of you that were operating: when you are walk mowing, most people when they walk, you tend to walk and you plant your heel and then walk. Well, when you plant your heel on a golf green and this is going to be soft, you'll notice that your heel will sink into the ground and you'll actually leave little footprints in it. So you don't want to walk like you normally walk. You don't want to walk with your heel first and go. You want to walk almost flat-footed. So it's a little bit a different kind of walk than you may be used to, but pay attention as you're mowing to how you step. You kind of want to reach your foot out and step more of a flat foot so that the whole foot plants down and it reduces the amount of compaction. And so they've done studies where they've tested how much compaction takes place with a riding greens mower with wheels on it versus how much compaction with your foot by the operator actually stepping and landing on his heel. And the studies show that you will actually do more damage if you walk on your heel than if you drive across with a machine that has the operator on it and the engine and all the hydraulics and 3 cutting units and the frame and all that stuff. You'll actually do more damage as a walker than without it. There's a lot of differences in opinion out there as to what is the best thing. Should I use a walking greens mower or should I do a riding greens mower? And you guys are going to be operating both of them. Once you've operated both of them, obviously riding greens mowers are going to be nicer for you as an operator because you're not getting all that exercise. So riding greens mowers deprive you of exercise. Walking greens mowers keep you fit. And you guys all want to be fit, right? So you will definitely get a lot of exercise, and after you've been in school for 6 months and you've put on your freshman 15, when you go to the golf course and they put you on walking greens mower duty, you'll lose that 15 pounds plus pretty quick. So it's really good exercise. So you're going to walk Want to change your foot pattern, you want to get that teardrop thing down so that when you swing back around, you're lined up with the next direction. You want to lay it down. Even when you're doing fairway mowers, you don't want to do more than a 1/2 inch to 1 inch overlap. You'll actually see the overlap when one cutting unit is on top of the other cutting unit. So you go back and you remow. If you remow that strip, because the grass is actually being cut twice, that little strip of overlap will be cut more precise and you'll notice it. And so a good operator will lay that thing down and he'll have less than a 1/2 inch of overlap. The secret, same as on a fairway mower, anytime you're trying to cut straight lines, is don't look right at the cutting unit. When you look down, you tend to follow wherever you're looking. And so you want to be looking out ahead of yourself. And you can kind of get yourself figured out once you've been mowing a while. You'll figure out that when I look over there, I'm going to be walking and I'll mow in a perfectly straight line. And you'll know kind of what point you need to be to have that 1/2 inch overlap and be able to walk straight. And it takes a lot of time to figure that out. But eventually, if you're paying attention, you'll be perfect every single time. So like I told these other guys, when I worked at Waverly in Portland, I worked there for part of the summer, and that was my job, was walking greens mower. And it took me 4 weeks before I could consistently mow a perfectly straight line with a consistent small overlap every single time. So I could get it most of the time. In the first 2 weeks I get it most of the time, but it was 4 weeks before virtually every stripe was straight. So it took a while. And you guys are only going to mow for 1/2 hour to an hour at the most. So you're not going to be experts, but you should have the technique down. And if you ever go to a golf course, you'll be able to improve it. So it gives you an idea of what that is. So the teardrop, the cleanup, so he did a cleanup. He did a cleanup one way and then came back the opposite direction to the inner one. So various golf courses will change what they do for cleanups. So we're not going to get into that. When he was done and he did wash the machine up, in this case he washed them. He talked about whether you should blow them off or not. Blowing them off is the best choice if possible, because when you wash something, especially if it's been running, the machine is hot, the gearboxes are hot, the rollers are hot, and when you spray cold water on them, that metal actually shrinks. And when it shrinks, the cavity inside will be large and it's hot, and when you cool it off, anything that cools off, the air shrinks and it actually pulls water into the bearings. And so the problem with water is it cools it off and it sucks water into the bearings, and then you go put it in the cart barn or you put it in the shop or wherever you're going to put it, and then the water sits in that bearing overnight till the next day, and then it rusts. And the number one failure on bearings and seals on mowing equipment is washing. It's water. So it's not the dirt, not the lack of greasing per se. Lack of greasing doesn't wash the water back out, but it's letting water in and not purging it. So typically a lot of golf courses will have you mow, you will wash, and then you immediately grease. And when you grease, it pushes the water back out of the bearings and protects the bearings. So in our case, we just try to blow it off if possible. So if it's dry by the time we're done and the grass isn't really sticking on it very well, it's just as easy to blow it off. At the end of this class, by the time we're done, it may be cooler, it may be wet. You get back and there's grass stuck all over it, and then we'll wash it. We don't want to pull the pressure washer out and just blow it off because it works really fast. But when I blow it off with a pressure washer, I'm going to blow water into those bearings and seals, and then you're going to rust up the bearings. And especially where we do it on a Friday, it sits all weekend. It may be 6 days before we move that machine, so it just sits there and rusts in that spot, and it ruins them. So we try to blow it off at all possible. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to leave grass in the reel itself. And so most people will blow off or wash off, and they wash everything behind the reel, and there's like a cavity back there. And when you wash it there and then you let it sit, that grass holds the moisture, and then the reels back there actually rust. and it actually damages that perfect cutting unit with that rust. So you want to make sure that you spin the reel and kind of auger the grass out, make sure it's clean, make sure there's no grass folded over the knife itself, which is that smooth shiny blade that's there. Make sure there's no grass on it, otherwise it will pit it up and it'll damage it. So make sure if you're going to wash it, you have to wash it really, really good. If you're spinning the reel, so I'm washing and I'm spinning it, like he said, don't spin it in the normal forward direction because the two sharp edges are coming together and that can dull the reel. So turn it in reverse, and you want to make sure that you grab the blade and move it. So grab each side of the blade with your hand and move it, because if you grab it and you flick it, you push the reel and your hand stops and the next blade comes around and it pinches your finger. Sometimes it pinches your finger and sometimes it just cuts your finger, and it either may cut it a little bit or it may cut it a lot. So be very careful. These blades are really, really sharp and they will cut it off really easy. So Mike, you want to go? So you don't want to be getting those blades to cut your hand, so be real careful about that. So they're really sharp. So turn it backwards. If there's a stick there, some places have a little stick, a little board or something, and you can take that and push on the reel as you're washing. That way you're not holding with your hand. So keeping your hands out of that cutting unit is a wise idea. So be very careful with that. Any questions? Any comments on your experience with the Walking Greens mower? Any comments that you want to do? So the hard part, would you agree, is just trying to get the teardrop?
Yeah, that's the hardest.
So it looks simple even there, but trying to get that technique down is challenging. So the rest of you guys will get to experience that. So we're going to stop there and we're going to watch another video and have another discussion.